Hey everyone, so this is what I look like. Today I'm going to talk about the MRI with contrast. So the worst part of that was the needle in my arm to do the contrast. I'm petrified of needles. The lady did a fantastic job, but I literally panicked, like to the point where she had to put like ice behind my neck and like I couldn't look. And then she's like, all right, we're done. And I was like, wait, the needle's out? And she's like, no, it's in there. And I was like, so I shouldn't look? And I was like, can you like cover it with something? So she wound up putting like a bandage around it, but the bandage was tight and it was kind of hurting me. You can see like my little scab right there. You probably can't see it. It's been a few days since that had over a week maybe. The lady who did the thing in my arm, she said like the test is 14 minutes. So I was like, okay, 14 minutes I can do. You don't have any of your regular clothes on. You have to get completely in their clothes because any kind of metal could like burn your skin or something like that. I don't really know exactly what it is. But I did have a mask on and the mask had a metal piece and they said that was fine. They ask you if you have like colored contacts in and like all these things. All my earrings had to come out, my belly button ring, my wedding ring, my bracelets I'd never put back on. And then they make you go in front of a metal thing and you turn around like you do like a 360 and it sees if you have any metal on you, which at that point I didn't, including makeup. Some makeup could have metal in it, so they test you for everything because they don't want to obviously hurt you. So anyway, when my husband got his back surgery, when he was leaking spinal fluid, they made him do an MRI. He was on his back for it. For my boobs, I was not on my back for it. I was on my front. Said your boobs fall into this thing. They ask you what kind of music you want to listen to. It's not a real question. I was like, I don't know, Stevie Nicks. And she was like, oh, well, it's just like playing light music. And I'm like, yeah, that's fine. And it wound up being like a Stevie Nicks radio station anyway, but they're just being nice. They aren't really going to change the station for you. And I have ADHD. So one of the biggest things for me is time, like feeling like I have to be here for like 20 minutes, 15 minutes or 20 minutes is a long time. And so music helps me. Like I could do long tasks when I'm listening to music. I go in the thing and I'm like, can you take the bandage that she put over the needle that, puts the thing in your arm? It's no longer a needle, it's like a flexi thing, but like I couldn't look at it. I was like, can you take the bandage off? Because the bandage is like hurting my arm. So she's like, yeah, no problem. She's like, is that better? I'm like, yes. So then she takes like, there's like a wire there, like a tube, and she puts it between my fingers and it was pulling. And I was like, and I feel she's about to roll me in. And I'm like, I'm not sitting here for the next 15 minutes, 20 minutes with this feeling like it's pulling, like I'll lose my mind inside that machine. So I was like, wait a second. It's hurting my arm. And she was like, okay. She's like, let me just make sure it's a clean line, like whatever. So she puts whatever through it. She's like, saline, I guess, or something. And she's like, yeah, it's like a clean line. Like you should be fine. I also said, I was like, please don't tell me when you put the dye in, because I knew it was with and without contrast. So I knew at some point you had to put the dye in. I was like, please don't tell me, like I will panic. I don't want to know that stuff. And she's like, okay, no problem. And then on the other side, they give you a little thing that you compress if you need them to get you out of the machine. Like if you're very scared, you do have to hold still while you're in there. But I was just in the mindset, like, I'm getting this done. I don't care how scared I am. Like, I'm getting this done. I wound up moving my own thumb a little bit and it like released a little bit of pressure. So I felt good. Then before I went in, she put rubbing alcohol on it, on the thing that's gonna allow the dye to go in there. I don't know what those are called. That kind of, I felt like that burnt a little, but like it didn't go in my veins, but like, I don't know, maybe it was in my head. Anyway, my feet went in first. My head was down. I couldn't see anything and I kept my eyes closed. Anyway, I did have the mask on, which was completely optional, but because I was like in a healthcare place, I wanted to do it for them because I know how good I am, but like the people I know, I don't know if they're like been exposed. You know what I mean? So I kept the mask on, which was good because I feel like if my nose was running, it would have been caught and I wouldn't have had the need to like rub it. So I recommend doing a mask. But anyway, so they roll you in backwards. So your feet go first and they're playing music. And it's like light music, which is nice. And you hear this thing, it's very loud and it's like the next whatever, I forgot what they call it, session maybe, is gonna be for 30 seconds. And then it's like rah, 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 for 30 seconds straight. And you just hear it going off. So what I was doing was I was counting. I was like, okay, 30 seconds. Then there was another one for 30 seconds. I was like, okay, that's a minute. Okay, and then another one was like 2 minutes. I was like, okay, we're at 3 minutes. Counting it in my head, that was easier for me to get through it. And it wound up being, I think, like 14 to 15 minutes for that. There were like little breaks in between, so maybe that brought you to 20 minutes. I'm not really sure. But I was counting like every time there was a session, but it's very loud. You could still kind of hear the music, but it's a very loud machine. And at one point, I feel like it was around 9 minutes. I felt like there was something that like just soaked my entire arm. Like I felt like my arm was soaking wet at one point, and I was like gonna panic and be like, what just happened? Did this thing come out of my arm and now everything's everywhere? But I was like, no, she probably just added the dye in. That was probably the dye that you feel going through like your whole arm. And then I was in there for a few more minutes for a few more tests. After that, she rolled me out. She's like, you're done. And I was like, did you put the dye in during like the middle of the test? And she was like, it was the middle towards the end. You didn't want to know, so I didn't tell you. And I was like, yeah, I felt like wetness come over. Like it almost feels like it's on the outside, but it's obviously on the inside. And then she's like, yeah, you did great. She took out the thing out of my arm. She put a Band-Aid on. And then I was like, I have to go get a mammogram now. And they're like, crap. So I could see that they were like panicking over it. They were like, you can't get a mammogram now because you have dye inside. I had both scheduled for that day. She's like, because you have dye inside, it could mess up the mammogram. Like, I thought they were going to be like, you have to take another test. We found something weird on the MRI, but it was like, we're really sorry. Like, you can't do the mammogram today. So I'm like, okay, that's totally fine. So I go up to the front and the lady's like, no, you definitely can do the mammogram today. So I'm like, well, they said I couldn't. So she's like, all right, let's schedule one for Monday. So this was Wednesday. We were scheduling it for Monday. I get dressed, I leave, and I get a call. I'm in the car, and they're like, hey, can you come? Are you close? Can you come back? We can do the mammogram. We spoke to one of the doctors, and we could do the mammogram even though you have the dye. It's not the preferred way to do it, but we can do it. So I was like, yeah, absolutely. So I went back to go get the mammogram. So that is what it's like to get an MRI with and without contrast. It's literally nothing, especially if you don't have a fear of needles in your arm or like those flexy things that like would allow the dye to go through. It's literally nothing. I would take the MRI with and without contrast over a mammogram any day of the week. I would take a biopsy over a mammogram any day of the week. My results from the MRI with and without contrast were great. There was nothing to worry about. So that could detect cancer, but they said it was completely fine. But then I had to get the mammogram, and they did find stuff on the mammogram. So I'm going to come back and talk to you guys about that. So I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.